Welcome everybody to Tricks of the Trade Challenge and Difficulty. I'll be talking about challenge and difficulty today, probably because my mic was way off to the side. Quick announcements, resub day is tomorrow, so check your subscriptions to the DM Tauzy Presents channel. We try to get it in all in one day, but you can resub anytime you want, really. Resub to the channel, check your Amazon Prime subscription, see if that's ready to go. And then tomorrow we also have the Grand Coliseum PvP event that's happening at 8 p.m. So come watch your fellow players murder each other in a Coliseum Battle Royale event. Always fun. Tomorrow's theme will be June Gloom. So it's just going to be warlocks and rogues going at it. Should be a lot of fun. Let's see. Also, the mid-season finale of Planescapers is going to be on June 18th. That'll be this Tuesday at 9 p.m. PT with Kyle White from my Texas Saturday crew. Kyle, are you in the chat? I think you are. I think you are in the chat. Also, Wednesday's continuing. I'm continuing my Quake 2 run on Wednesday nights. That'll be at 8:15, and then hopefully I'll be able to move on to Icewind Dale. Although I think I'm going to do 2 nights a week. I'm probably going to do like an FPS night, and then like a single player RPG night. That's probably what I'll do. And then Thursday is also continuing our Tomb of Annihilation run with our Thursday crew. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, let's get to it. There you are. Hello, Kyle. Let's get to our questions. Okay. So, how can a new DM know what enemies are appropriate for our party's level? The quick and simple answer is CR, but you are alive from Cali. Kyle, you are alive from Cali. How can a new DM know what enemies are appropriate for our party's level? Let me post this into chat, and then I'll answer it there. The quick answer is use CR. CR is not broken. I know a lot of people say that CR is broken. It's not. It's spent up, but it's not broken. The game is designed for a party of 4 adventurers. 4, not 3, not 5. It's designed for 4 adventurers who use minimal to mid levels of magic items. That's what it's designed for. So if your party's around there, if it's 4 people who kind of know what D&D is, you could functionally use CR to try and use enemies that are appropriate for their level. Even using CR, it's gonna take some time to kind of finagle it and figure out what enemies you like to use, how many you want to put in front of the party. You don't have to throw all the monsters at once. Use waves. Use waves of enemies. That's my first advice to any DM. Is you don't have to throw everything at them all at once. Does CR1 level equate to a 4-part? Yes, it does. So CR means, if it's CR1, that means that is an appropriate challenge for a party of 4 level 1s. That will provide them a somewhat challenging encounter that will deplete some of their resources. That's what that means. So if you have a couple 1s versus a party of 4 level 1s, that will be somewhat to very challenging, right? So level 1s probably shouldn't be taking on CR1 things, at least not multiples of those. They should probably be taking on 1/4s or 1/8s or 1/2s, right? If they're doing multiple monsters, like skeletons, rats. We all know it, right? Gobos. We know it. That's what they should handle. So use CR as a base. Use waves. Don't go too heavy-handed. Yeah, that's my answer for that. Let's keep going. Okay. And if you're watching, if you have any more questions in chat, please post the questions in chat. I can answer them as well. How can you as a DM know if a party is about to die? Oh, something just happened. Okay, thank you. Okay. How can you as a DM know if a party's about to die because they did something stupid, or you just built an encounter much stronger than you should have? Thanks, Nightbot. You know that a party is about to die because they did something stupid or you just built a counter much stronger than you should have. This is one of those things where you just have to feel it out. You just have to play it. You have to DM the game. You have to jump in the pool and see what level you like. How much water do you want to be swimming in? You know, you got to jump in and see. Typically speaking, it's not the. It's best to work on the default that it's not the player's fault. And it's not your fault that they're dying, really. It's just a matter of you just got to work it out, right? Typically, I would say it's on the DM side if it's too strong, obviously, because we're in charge of everything that is not the players. But fault is weird. I would say, you know, it's okay to drop some enemies' hit points and AC if need be, if you think that a TPK is going to happen, or you might just want to let a TPK happen and see how that feels. It's not going to feel great. TPKs don't feel great, but if you're getting there, if there's a death spiral, and death spiral means that a player drops, so now the player's action economy is harder for them to survive. Another player drops, it gets even more exponentially difficult for them to survive. And then so forth and so forth. So there are things you can do. You can bring in some DM help. Maybe they know somebody who can come in and help. To refine the question, when would you not want to let the party TPK? You would not want to let the party TPK if you as a DM don't want to start over. Because TPK is a start over. No matter how we finagle it, it's a lot of work for the DM. The players can easily make some characters, but it's up to you as a DM, if there is a TPK, to kind of reorganize the plot structure, whatever you're creating, and it's going to be a little stressful, but it's okay. I've had it happen a couple times, just a straight TPK in a game. Admittedly, it was when I first started doing it, like in the first 10 years of my DMing. But, so I know how to get around it. I would say, when would you not want to let the party TPK? For me, most of the time, I don't want to let them TPK. There's some, yeah, you can add in some like DM PC help. There could be, if they know people, if there are NPCs that are helping, maybe they can come in and help. You can drop some hit points of the creatures. You can allow some players who are alive to run. There are, you know, it's tough to run in D&D, but you can change some stuff around. Maybe the monsters don't give chase. I'll talk about like monster motivation. The monster motivation is not always, we need to murder all of the players right now. Let's all get in there and kill all of them. That's actually almost never the monster's motivation. Also have to know your players. This game is supposed to be fun, right? So if the threat of TPK is fun, exciting, then that means that has to be a potential outcome. It can be. It totally can be. It totally can be. Having that said, a TPK, when you feel it, it can be stressful. It can be stressful. But if you're down for it, and if your players are down for it, your players are down for it. And sometimes it is because they did something stupid. So my answer is meandering to that one because there's a lot to it that can get kind of complex. My best advice is to build encounters such that you don't have to worry about them being so strong that it's insta death. Right? You don't have to hit them with everything all at once. Spread out your monster initiative. Don't use all the monsters at once, and don't have all your monsters use every big thing that they have right away. And don't use the recharge mechanic that D&D gives. It's not the best. It's too spiky, and there's better ways to do it. It's dramatic, but it's not. There's better ways to do it. Okay, let's continue. And then I will jump on Roll20 and we'll talk about challenge when we get to it, but let me answer these questions. Okay. What are your thoughts on adjusting the difficulty of an encounter during the encounter based on how the party is doing? I'm okay with it. I think, like Matt Colville has said, something to the effect of combat design, monster design doesn't end, or it doesn't stop when you're at the table, something to that effect. Meaning you can continue to adjust things. Honestly, the more times than not, 9 times out of 10, if I'm adjusting difficulty during an encounter, I'm making it harder. But usually I'm not really doing that much of that. Typically, the vast majority of times that I'm adjusting the difficulty, it's usually adding hit points to a boss or a mini boss that I neglected to do beforehand. That's usually when it happens. Oh, there's 7 players instead of 5. This boss needs another couple hundred hit points. That's usually what happens, if it ever happens. Doesn't happen that much for me these days. I kind of know what hit points a monster, what hit points I want my monsters to have. Okay. What signals do you think players should learn to mean deadly difficulty? Okay, so let's address this one. What signals do you think players should learn to mean deadly difficulty? You can just straight up say, this area over here is tier 2. You can do heavy-handed. There's nothing wrong with that. It is, and now I'm going to explain what's wrong with that. It is heavy-handed and it is meta, but you literally can't say, this is the difficult section over here. Or you can be a little bit more finesse about it and say, like, there are more, it seems like things are more difficult the more west you go. It seems the dragons just get bigger and bigger the further you go west. Or you can use more flowery language if they're around like a particularly strong cave and say, the hairs on your neck are standing up. You feel as if you are, you can go heavy-handed and say, you feel as if you were not meant to be here at this point. People in town there are rumors in town that say the monsters here take no prisoners, and they have defeated heroes stronger than yourselves. You can physically in the story of the game put those bones there. You can put the bones of creatures who are better than the heroes, and they have been defeated by the monsters ahead of them. So there's flowery. There's a more finesse way to do these things, but honestly, it's okay to say, especially if you're still starting out, it's okay to say, like, you really don't want to go over here. At least not yet. You probably should build up your power as players. You should build up your know-how. You should go on some more adventures. Having to find some really good loot on what appears to be a dead adventuring party. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. I mean, just keep in mind, this is not a this is a leveling. This is a tabletop role-playing game where you level from 1 to level 15. Most people don't go above 15, but you level from 1 to 15, thereabouts. So there's a leveling system where some areas, even though that this is a bounded accuracy system, and we'll talk about that later, level 10 areas are not the same as level 3 areas. And players instinctively know that. They know that they're playing a leveled game, so you can use language that leads them to believe this is a much more difficult place. There's an aura of menace about it. There are the monsters here literally are bigger. The ground begins to shake as you come to this place. You can go meta, or you can use flowery language. Either one works. And then the question says, are specific enemy abilities encounter changers, i.e. paralyze? Yes. They very much are. Anything that is a CC ability, paralyze, stun, petrification, insta-death, insta-zombification. If you use, I know I said that CR works, but there's some enemies that are not appropriately ascribed their CR values, such as like a Spectre. A Spectre is CR2, I believe. It should be a CR4. A Banshee should be higher than the CR that it is because it has an insta kill. Shadows probably should be higher. Yes, Jeremy. Shadows probably should be higher. A lot of those undead, a lot of those beginner undead are not so beginner undead. So I would say look at those CC abilities. Look at those abilities that are basically insta stop, and then just up their CR. Their CR, all those creatures, their CR probably needs to go up at least 2 for those, somewhere around there. Yeah. That's what I would do. Or if you want to face them at a lower level, give them something to counter those enemies. At least something, a magical weapon, some type of item that counters their CC. You know, you can get creative with it, but yeah, the CC abilities are rough. They can be really rough. Let's keep going. Okay. You do a good job using the arrival of enemy reinforcements as a means to increase the challenge. How do you gauge when and how many to bring? So this has come up actually recently a couple times with my players. They're like, I see that waves are a thing that you do. My players are cognizant of the fact that I use waves of enemies. The reason I do this is because it solves a number of things. It solves that's a question, but I'll send it here to you. I'll get to that one. in a bit. The reason I use waves of enemies is that it solves challenges that are too easy, that you can apply more of a challenge, and it solves the problem of instantly TPKing your group. You don't want to put too much on the board at once, so you have waves of enemies there. It also fleshes out your world. Your world doesn't end at the edges of a Roll20 map, right? There are enemies who are coming from underneath the water. They're coming from the sky. They're coming from the room in the dungeon room next door. They're coming from maybe a whole other dungeon across the way if the players are loud enough. Waves of enemies means that the map is not the world. The world continues past the map. So yeah, liberal use of trash mobs, exactly. I do use liberal use of trash mobs. It's supposed to be heroic fantasy, and in heroic fantasy, you don't just kill 3 skeletons, you kill mobs of skeletons. That's the fun. So how do I gauge when and how many to bring? That's a CR thing. It's also a feel thing. You just feel it out. But in terms of like, do I have my waves prepped, or is it just like a thing that I just bring more enemies out? Typically I have them prepped. People don't believe me, I think, but honestly, a lot of my enemies are placed in a GM layer. They're placed in a GM layer so you can't see them on the Roll20 map, and then what I'm doing is I'm highlighting them, placing them on the token layer, and bringing them into the map. So most of them are pre-organized. And so how many depends, honestly. That will depend on how many players there are. Having 4 players is different than 5 players. Having 7 players is vastly different than having 4 players, and requires a different touch on the game. It requires a lot more. The efficiency, the damage per round, the healing per round, the extra brains who are willing to solve things, the extra combos you have when you have 7 people as opposed to 4 is astronomically bigger. It is just exponentially bigger than having 3 or 4 players at your table. And we'll talk about having 3 players later on as well. 3 players is rough. It is instantly rough. If you have 4 players, that's what the game's designed for. It's really designed for 4 or 5. If you have 3 players, we are in a different game. If you have 7 or 8 players, it is also a different game. Yeah. I sent this question to you, but I'll send it here. Do you design a challenge puzzle with the solution already in mind, or do you go into thinking, let's see what they come up with? I think I have this one here. Yeah, I have that one later on. So I'll just do it here. I'll do this one here, Kyle. You designed a challenge puzzle with solution already in mind. Here's how I designed a challenge puzzle. I'll design a challenge, whatever the challenge may be. You need to, there are crystals here that are emanating some sort of energy that's disrupted. They're emanating necrotic energy. Or there's like a puzzle here with a whole bunch of runes on it that might activate a trap or something. I'll leave it open-ended as to how to solve it. I'll have one solution to it. I'll write out a solution. I'll write out a second solution. And then the third solution, I'll literally write out, or whatever the players come up with. So, and the third one is the most important one, because that's the most interesting one 9 times out of 10. The 1 and 2 come up, the players probably will come up with 1 or 2, meaning the first solution I come up with and the second solution I come up with. But if they don't, and they decide to solve it their own way, I'm also up for that. I think that's great. So that's what I do. Sometimes I won't come up with a solution already in mind, but typically I like to have some sort of solution. That way you don't end up with because if you end up with the problem of the players don't know how to solve it, and they're just kind of spiraling around, talking themselves into a deeper problem that it wasn't a deep problem to begin with, which happens all the time. It's good as a DM to have a solution in your back pocket and just kind of throw hints. Like, you could, you notice this. You notice this about the room. Just keep giving the hints that they can try and solve it the way that you initially came up with. That way, it won't be an hour and a half of stroking your chin at a door, which does happen at tables. I've been in those. It's not the best, right? If that's happening, you probably need to move it along. Throw hints at your first solution. The players they're stuck. They're not going to give their own solution. So you need to give them hints towards the first one that you created. That's my help for that. Okay, let's keep going. You doing good? Okay, let's keep going. Do you try your luck and gate those hints behind skill checks aimed at that thing, or just dig out fast? Honestly, if you're in a spot where people are spiraling, I wouldn't put it behind skill check. I would just say, here it is. It's the main problem with murder mysteries in TTRPGs. If you don't have hints you're ready to just give out, you will have players stuck on very simple problems. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because their brains, that you have, 4 to 6 people who think very differently, who are not the DM, who do not see the world like the DM sees it, and their brains are spiraling around a problem that could have been solved simply, but they just can't. They're thinking too hard on it, or they're thinking, there's 6 different brains on it. So it's going to be, sometimes you are stupid. That's okay. It's okay to be stupid sometimes. It's all right. Sometimes you just need more coffee. Maybe that's what you do. Just give them some coffee. So I would say, don't gate those hints behind skill checks. If you just want to give a hint, give the hint. Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're gonna do a skill check, what I do is I'll say, like, 2 of you can roll this skill check. We'll talk. I might have to do skill checks as a separate talk. But what I do for skill checks is I don't allow everyone to roll the skill check, because then you're just going to have a skill pile up, and you might as well not roll if you have 5 or 6 people roll. What that is, if 5 or 6 people are rolling, that essentially is about a quintuple advantage roll. So that's useless. But what I do have is 2 people are allowed to roll typically on any skill check when it's passive, when there's no combat going on. Typically 2 people can make the roll. If you don't make it, you got to find a different way to solve the problem. If it's a particular skill check challenge, something like that. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is a good question. This is a good one. When, if ever, is it okay to have your intelligent enemies slay PCs after they become unconscious? I would say that the answer's in the question. They have to be intelligent enemies, typically, and it should only happen rarely. Typically in D&D, you don't have intelligent enemies to begin with. Typically the enemies in D&D, unless you're rolling a highly urban campaign, their intelligence, their wisdom score, and their intelligence score is very much under the players. And that is intentional. It's by design that the monsters are less intelligent than the players. However, that's not always a determinant factor in whether or not they're going to kill you if you're unconscious. There's a lot to say about monster motivation, so I'll talk about it here. Sometimes, if we talk about just say beasts, a beast motivation is to survive. So that survival might be I grab a PC, I grab one of these strange humanoid things, because that's my dinner. I grab one and I pull it on the ground and I run away with him. That's terrifying. There are a couple creatures like that in like Sirocco. I think it's called a trapdoor spider. It's a ginormous thing that grabs you and runs away with you. Very terrifying. I don't think any of my players have actually ever run into that before. There's some monsters that do that. There's some monsters like gnolls that have an ability where if they drop you, they get a free bite attack. So that's terrifying. They can hit you and then bite you. They start to eat you right away. I would say those are not very intelligent creatures, but they might start to slay you after you become unconscious. And that's just part of what makes them really scary. What else? Okay, but intelligent creatures, they would slay you only if they see that you keep getting up. They might figure out, or they might know beforehand that we need to take them out. We just need to make sure our prey is down. If they're really smart and your players are high enough level, I'd say it's okay to start doing this. If they're really smart, it's okay. Generally speaking, though, if an enemy puts you down at 0 and there are more players up and still fighting, the smarter thing to do actually is to try and take down as many as possible. At least the surface level thing, I think, of most enemies would say is to fight the thing that's moving, that's still trying to get me. So I would try to stay away, typically, from slaying PCs on the ground. Even the DM we had at Adventurers League, who was really rough. I mean, really hard, so hard. We were 5th level characters, and he was putting up CR 12 stuff against us. Just challenging stuff for level 12 characters. And even he wouldn't put more hurt on unconscious characters. I remember a time when I made a skill check on jumping a gap as a T-Rex. I don't know at the time the drop of the gap I was jumping was super far. I'm sure they'd kill me if I'd failed. Not to worry, I rolled a nat 20, of course. What's your stance on a PC deaths not related to combat? I've had PC deaths not related to combat. It happens. Sometimes you fall. 20d6 is nothing to scoff at. 20d6 is what? The average of that is 20 times 3.5, 70 points of damage. You fall 200 feet, you're gonna take around 70 points of damage. You fall in lava, you take 10d6 per round. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Sometimes that happens. It's part of the game. Let's see. Here's his question. How do you deal with silly players? How do you deal with silly players in a serious campaign? Well, you have Graham Chapman come out as, what was his name? The lieutenant. Someone help me out. He came out as the officer of silliness who came out and put the rule down on silliness. You can have that. I would say silly players, you can rein them in by having rules set up on your session 0, right? Your session 0, You can say things. I might put a new rule for in terms of like silly players. I might have a new rule that says you can't have a joke name. I might also have a rule that says you can't have a proper noun. You can't have a proper noun that already exists. Like if you want to play, oh god, I don't know. If you want to play like John Wick, you have to at least slightly modify the name. Treat your character as if it were a real person in this world of a beer tourial, typically that I'm playing in, on the continent of Faerun. Who are they actually? Who are their parents? How to do one chick? So my answer to that is ask them serious questions about their character and their backstory. Like not being mean about it. Like just ask them, literally sit them down and ask them serious questions about who their parents are, what they care about, why are they doing this, who they care about, and what their characters who they want to be. Why do they want to reach level 10? Whatever that means to their character. Yeah. Let's answer that question. What's the hardest accent or character to voice, and how do you get better at it? Okay, so lately I've been kind of listening to a couple people online, a couple like good voice actors, and just actors in general, talking about various different UK accents, because there's so many in the UK, and they appear so much just in the zeitgeist of heroic fantasy, that I think we DMs should do a better job of familiarizing ourselves with them. So, Welsh is something I'm trying to get better at. Irish is always something I struggle with. Scottish is something we all think we're good at, but we're not nearly as good as we should be. A northern accent I want to get better at. What is it? That one's on the tip of my tongue. French I'm pretty good at, but that's because I'm French. Thinking of the South. When people think of UK, most people think of a London accent. They think of like a dirty London accent, or they think of a posh accent. But there's so much more. There's like over 20. There's so many accents. So I would start there. I need to do more research there and look at some of the ones that I need help with, because there's so many little tiny accents that we think sound similar, but they're really not. They're really, really different than each other. That's the best place to start, I think, especially with high fantasy. Go to the UK, learn a whole bunch. If you're bad at accents, don't worry about that. You don't have to do accents at all. You don't have to do accents to be a DM. You do not. You can just say what your characters are saying. Actually, instead of accents, what I would focus on, if you're beginner DM, I would focus on affectations. Focus on how this character speaks, how they focus on focal points on where in the mouth would they focus their voice, right? If you're speaking from like way in the back and you don't care, you just kind of, it's like a lazy voice way back here. A posh English accent is going to be at the tip of your tongue. It's going to be right here. It's very focused. It's almost like you're dressed in a suit while you're speaking it, right? It's right at the tip of your tongue. Whereas like the lazy accent, it's got more, the energy is just more relaxed, it's back there. So focus on where you're focusing the accent. Some accents are just more nasally. It's up there, right? Yeah, like put it in your nose. So listen to high rollers and hear Irish people from that part of the world mess up their flip Welsh and Irish. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I would focus on affectations. Like maybe this guy, if you want to diversify the sounds you're making, Maybe this guy's got like he's got maybe like a cough always, or maybe maybe they just speak in whispers. Yeah, I'm with the Thieves Guild. Or maybe they scream every now and then. Focus on affectations. Focus on non-accent, quirky, idiosyncratic, weird things about how a person speaks to the rest of the world. Yeah, that's what I would do. Accents are more tricky. They're definitely more tricky, and I need to do some more work on them. How do you balance homebrew items? Like, how do you balance the rule of cool versus being overpowered? Okay, I'll talk about this when I play Icewind Dale, but my favorite weapon in Icewind Dale, and it's a homebrew item that the designers made, meaning it's not one of your like bracers of defense or a +1 battle axe or something like that. It's called the Wandering Sky, and it's a +1 greatsword. That's all it is mechanically. But because it has such a fantastic backstory to it, it's just a great weapon. It stuck with me because the designers took the time to write out this enormous backstory to a sword that mechanically doesn't do anything more than just be a +1. I make a lot of overpowered stuff. I do. One way to make an overpowered item is just to smush 2 items together. That's a real quick way to do it. This is a ring of protection and fire nullification. Fire resistance. It gives you a +1 to AC and saves, and gives you fire resistance. There, that's an item. You just push 2 items together and make that. That's an easy way to make overpowered items, and an easy way to overcome the problem of over attunement, where I'm attuned to 3 items. Oh no, I can't attune to anything. What if 2 items were the same thing? You only have to attune to 1 of them. There, that's a way to do it. I recommend throwing whatever you want at the players. You don't have to give the overpowered items. You don't have to give tier 3 items at tier 3. You can give them tier 1. Do whatever you want. Shake up the meta, as they say. Like, have fun with it. But how do I balance the rule of cool versus being overpowered? Honestly, I don't think I make a lot of like truly overpowered items, like items that are just like this item. What I'm cognizant of is if an item. What I'm always cognizant of is if an item can be spammable. If an item like does this thing where it constantly makes you ignore obstacles. If it's doing that, that's truly overpowered. When we have at-will call for items that just break the game, that's overpowered. That's something we don't need anymore, I would say. Oh my gosh, I'm going very long on this one. Oh well, we're going very long. So, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, so items that ensure. Yeah, items that have this thing that where you can constantly just ignore obstacles, like it just gives you this item just makes you fly all the time. Well, now we don't have to worry about gravity anymore. We don't have to worry about any obstacles that you as a DM have crafted to be on the ground that require the players to have respect for gravity. Those are gone because now you can fly all the time, right? If you have an item that lets you like see through the dungeons. If you have an item that like see through all the dungeons, well, dungeon walls are an obstacle in the game for a reason. So now you've negated all those. Anything that is spammable and is just a huge power upgrade, I would say you don't have to balance those. I would say those you probably should wait to put in until much later in the game, when you don't have to worry about players breaking all the obstacles, when that's the point later on in the game. That's what to say. I think there's a big difference between like overpowered and game breaking. An overpowered item is like a +3 sword right at like level 2. That's overpowered. You could do that if you want. A game-breaking item is something that like that breaks your game. That it literally breaks the game you've crafted for yourself and the players. You don't want to make those items, I would say. Those are not great. Okay. 1 second. Welcome, everybody. Please sub to the channel. Consider subbing to the channel. We got some more viewers. Hello, hello. All right, let's keep going. I still got 2 more questions, then we'll get to me talking about challenge. I'll go into Roll20 and I'll do some. I'll talk there for a bit. Okay. How do you manage encounter difficulty when you don't know how many people will show up for any given session? This is a good question. For example, if you plan to throw an adult black dragon to 7 PCs, what do you do if only 4 show up? Okay, so 7 people are coming. Only 4 show up, and you have an adult black dragon. Here's mechanically what typically happens with me. That adult black dragon is going to stay in the game, right? That's going to stay. That adult black dragon versus 7 people wasn't going to do very well just as an adult black dragon. So that adult black dragon probably had some drakes around it, or it had additional hundreds of HP on the creature, or it had layer actions upon layer actions to help it out, or environmental effects, or more minions, or you get the idea, etc., etc. So if only 4 show up, what I'm usually doing is subtracting from the things that I've already added, right? 9 times out of 10, it isn't the problem that you need to decrease the difficulty. Usually it's you need to increase it when you're prepping. When you're prepping a game, it just so happens that most encounters probably, you think they're very hard, but your players will go above and beyond in terms of combat. So that adult black dragon probably should stay. The game is designed for 4 players to take on adult black dragons when it's CR appropriate, right? And even when it's not really CR appropriate, they can take a couple levels above their CR when it comes to a black dragon fight. And a black dragon fight should be pretty monumental. It should be memorable. So it's okay if it's difficult. So don't make it a youngling. Don't make it a wormling. That's what I would say. Keep it an adult black dragon. Look at its hit points. Maybe drop the hit points a little bit than an adult black dragon is if you need to. Maybe drop some of the layer actions if it has those. I don't know. I can't remember if adult black dragon has layer actions, and I don't think they do. They have legendary stuff though. Maybe drop some of the legendary actions. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. Typically, it's okay to put more in there to challenge them, and then subtract if you need to subtract. Okay, so I was just playing in Azure Sky with my Sunday crew, and one of them said, how do you balance? Literally, that's it. How do you balance? And I like unbalanced things. This is from my buddy Joe. How do you balance? He was just like, keep it broad. How do you balance? And he said, I like unbalanced things. And I couldn't agree more. The reason you like unbalanced things is because there's a sense of mystery, there's a sense of danger, and you don't know what's going to be around the corner. So I'm in the same vein. Sometimes you don't want your stuff to be balanced. This is a weird thing to negotiate when you're talking about balancing something. You're like, sometimes you just don't want it to be balanced, but that's how it is, man. If you read any of the good modules, and the good modules really are Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation, Avernus is pretty good, and Waterdeep. The heist one in Waterdeep. That's also a great one. A lot of those things, a lot of those encounters are just not balanced. They're not balanced for the C. They're not appropriately CR balanced, and that is by design. Again, sometimes you just need to run, or you need to figure out a different way to solve it rather than combat. Or if it drops down to combat, Players come up with the craziest things, so give them the benefit of the doubt. It's okay to challenge them with unbalanced encounters. How much? It really requires you to get in there and try it out, and it's okay. It's okay if you TPK them. It's okay, especially if they know you're new or you're just trying it out. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. It's just a game. Okay, let me go into Roll20. Okay, those are my questions. We're gonna get into the bulk of what we're doing today. Please tell me you can still hear me. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so let me see if this works. No, it doesn't work at all. Great. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to draw this out then. That's okay. In terms of challenge, this is what D&D is. Challenge is, let's do this. We have DC, and then we have challenge. Oh God. All right, maybe I'll just use my text. Yeah, I'll use my text. Okay. Let's just go up here. Fun, we roll 20. We have 5. Okay. We have 10. We have 15. Oh, that's not gonna work. Thank you. Okay. We have 15, and then we have 20. Okay. 5, 10, 15, 20. The challenges are easy, moderate. Oh gosh. We got easy, we got moderate, we have hard, and then we have, no, we have challenging, and then we have hard. Here it is. This is D&D, folks. This is it. 5 is easy. My mouse is not a pencil. It really, really isn't. 5 is easy, 10 is moderate, 15 is challenging, and 20 is hard. What challenge level is Darth Orc? We'll get to that. Darth Orc is, I mean, it's its own separate thing. It really is. But, okay, so this is the game. This is it. If anybody tells you that D&D is more than this chart, and this chart is in the DMG or the PHP, it's in one of those, I know it is. If anybody tells you that the D&D is more than this, they're trying to overcomplicate things. This is it, folks. Now you might say, like, okay, well, how do I use this in my game? You literally can, as many people have said, you literally can go, you literally can ascribe a DC to whatever is in your room, whatever's in your, whatever's in an obstacle, whatever's in a room, whatever's in a dungeon, or whatever's in a dungeon level. You can ascribe a DC to it for whatever level your characters are. So for example, let's continue this. If we have DC, this is the DC column, and we have a level column. I'll just draw it out again because it's easier. Levels. Yeah. We have a DC column over here. DC is 12. DC 13. DC 14. DC 15. Oops, that's 14. Okay, so for example, what you do is you take levels 1 to 2, and that becomes your DC 12. Levels 3 to 4, that becomes your level 13 or DC 13. DC 14 is your levels 5 to 6. Just an easy, simple way to do this. And so on and so forth. 15 is 7 to 8. I don't think this chart is in there. This is something that I've found over the years that kind of works, right? Where if you're creating a dungeon, say you're just creating a dungeon and your players want to do like a 5th level one-shot, whatever. They want to do a 5th level one-shot. So they're level 5. They're level 5. Just create a dungeon that has a whole bunch of DC 14 things in it. That's it, man. What do I mean by DC 14? I mean literally monsters that have AC 14, puzzles and traps that have DC 14 to them, passive things that you need to pass or fail that have DC 14 attached to them, and so forth and so forth, right? If we're using the scale of easy, moderate, challenging, and hard, most things should be around moderate to challenging. Some things need to be hard just by the way the math of the game works. Traps and locks and some knowledge checks should be a lot harder. Those should be 20 or even higher, even from the get-go of the game. But for the most part, this is a good graph to use, right? If you got some level 2s, they should be doing DC 12 stuff. If you got some level 7s, they should be doing some 15s and 16s DCs. That's it. That's the game. That is the game. So this represents the core of D&D 5e, bounded accuracy. Now, what is bounded accuracy? Because I'm sure some of you heard that term, you don't know what it means. Bounded accuracy just means they have squished the numbers. That's really what it means. They squished the numbers. In 3rd edition, if you were level 10, your bonus to hit something was probably around like a plus 16 through a plus 20 at that point. In D&D 5e, it's probably somewhere around the plus 8 to plus 12, right? It's somewhere around there. So the numbers got squished. And so in essence, the game got nerfed. It got nerfed such that 1 through 20, the levels, got pushed closer together. Just a little bit. In terms of the base mechanics, in terms of like numbers of damage that spells do and numbers, the bigger numbers of dice we're using, how many dice we're using, that got jumped up. But the bounded accuracy of the game, the base attack bonus that is now called the proficiency bonus, was squished to be +2 through +6. So what the great thing about that is it's very elegant, and that it promotes a lot more easy dungeon design. So use the graph. Use something like this. If you're building a one-shot, use this. This is here for you. Cool? I think it's cool. Let's take a... Gosh, I'm going to take my first 5-minute break while I'm yapping. No, we're going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, because I'm almost done. Some things some things to keep in mind that need to be scaled differently. Traps and locks might need a boost, but the DC per level can be easily applied to spell DCs, AC, passive skill checks, etc. Okay, very cool. Increasing difficulty in your game. If you need to increase difficulty in your game, sometimes the simplest answer is the best. Okay. Sometimes the best way to increase difficulty is to increase the number of enemies and or increase their base hit points. Sometimes it really is that simple. We don't need to overcomplicate things if we just don't need to. If you have more players, sometimes you just need more enemies and they need to be stronger. That's it. In terms of bosses or mini-bosses, increase the difficulty by adding minions, environmental effects, elevation differentials, etc. Okay? Decreasing difficulty in your game. If you're trying to decrease the difficulty in your game, something might be drastically wrong here. You just might be overpowering your game with too many monsters right away, and what is statistically speaking the more probable thing is that you have fewer players. Again, the simplest answer here is still the best. This you need to decrease difficulty typically when you're dealing with 3 or less players. If you're dealing with just 3 players, you know, you have to think about action economy. There's just not enough players to deal with the amount of threats that are coming at them. They can't deal with them as quickly as 4 players. And 2 players, it is an entirely different game. 1 player is an entirely different game. You're playing solo D&D with your DM. Those, I mean, you should be fighting 1 monster at a time, probably. Maybe a couple really small enemies, but for the most part, you need to decrease the difficulty when you have few players. So that involves decreasing hit points, decreasing attacks, decreasing damage dice, and decreasing the amount of enemies. Yeah. In terms of the puzzles, in terms of like the stuff outside of combat, puzzles, social encounters, all those type of things, you can pretty much keep those the way they are. Keep those the way they are. They're probably fine, right? That's why I think sticking to my like only 2 people can roll the skill check. Some players, some DMs do only 1 person can do the skill check, which is very dramatic. It works for a lot of groups, but I find having someone who can help, especially if that person is also proficient and they can give advantage on the person who can do it, that gives a bit more synergy to the effect. But honestly, just having either 1 or 2 people only be able to do each skill check outside of combat works for the game. That way you don't have to worry about how many players there are. If there are 8 players, there's still only one or 2 people who can do the thing that they want to do. There's a weird high-pitched noise on your audio. That's weird. Let me just take my mic down. Is it my mic? Nubu USA? Do you still hear it? Check, 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 check. Check. Turn it down just a little bit. That's a bit better. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. It was hitting red, but no. Okay, that should be better. Okay. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about like creating harder or dire monsters in your game. Okay. Generally speaking, you should make it easier on yourself. Don't stress too hard about making monsters. Making monsters is easy in the game. Okay? What you want to do, here's my general rule for creating like a dire monster, right? Still hear it. Darn it. Take it down a little bit more. How's that? Is that better? Check, 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 check. Is it because the live stream is catching something that's muted? How about now? Is it gone? Just drop the desktop audio. Check, 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 check. That might be the best I can do right now. In any event, make it easier on yourself. Okay, so +2, if you're making a dire monster, +2 to all d20 rolls. Okay? That means attacks, saves, and skills. They get a +2 to everything, and a bonus attack, meaning they have multi-attack now, right? If it's a monster with just a single attack, give it another attack, and then add a bonus die to the damage. If they did 1d8 + 5, now they do 2d8 + 7, because it's a +2. You can add a +2 to damage as well. +2 to all d20 rolls, attack, save, skills, and damage, and add a multi-attack thing, attack twice, and do a bonus die to damage. Now you've created a very dangerous monster, right? Do that. Increase the hit points by double, and then increase that by how many players there are. Okay, if you have 4 players, typically you still want to increase the hit points of your bosses and mini-bosses. If you have 5 players, you need to exponentially increase that. 6 players, even more so. 7 players, even more so. Hundreds more hit points added to your bosses and mini-bosses. I'm not joking, this game is not prepared. The game is not made, it's not designed for 5 or more players. Really, really isn't. It's designed for 5. It's designed for 4 or 5 players. But 6 through 7 through 8, 9, all the way up, it's not designed for it. So you need a lot of hit points. I'm always worried about killing my players. It's okay. I understand. I understand your concerns, Nubu USA. I would say it's okay, even if you do kill them. Just understand you're not killing your players. You're killing their player characters. They're not actually dead. I was just in a game where a player character died. He was grabbed by a dark metal and dragged up to the ceiling and eaten, like just covered in darkness, grabbed like a blanket dark mantle, pulled up to the ceiling and smothered and eaten. Terrifying, but it's okay. It's not real. It's okay. But yeah, yeah, exactly. It can be scary, but just understand that it's just a game we're playing, and that, you know, the best thing to do is say, like, what's another character you really wanted to make? Let's get that character in. You can come in after this combat's done. That's my best advice. You can always make another character. Make another character. Let's get him in as quickly as possible. Yeah? Okay, let's go back to creating harder monsters with special monster abilities, such as like breath weapons, AoE effects, mobility specials. Use monsters. If you're creating a monster, here's my biggest advice. Use a monster that's already there, of a close enough CR to the monster you want to make. Use that monster, copycat it, and then start to modify and play with it. Right? If you want like a monster that has like thick skin and uses like a petrification ability, use a Gorgon as your base monster, and then kind of mess and play with its abilities. If you want a monster that has a like it burrows underground and it comes up and it does a slam attack that knocks everybody off their feet, start with your purple worm, or start with your bullet, and then use that as the chases for your new monster. Take it and then play with things. Throw some abilities out, put some abilities in, and create your new monster. I think when people say like, oh, I have to create a new monster, it feels too big because the options are too wide open. Take a monster already made, play with it, and then it's a lot easier. Right? That's what I would say. If you're going to create like a new dragon, which is always awesome, if you're creating a new dragon, take a dragon that's already there, take its abilities, start doing surgery, take out some ones you don't want, put some stuff that you do like. That's what I kind of miss that about the old 3rd edition, is that they had the ability to, like, in 3rd edition they had templates for you to use. I miss monster templates so bad, because they had like the pre-generated stuff that each template had, and you just applied that when you're creating monsters. So much easier. They got rid of it because it was probably too crunchy for the system they were trying to create. I made a one-shot end monster from a Kraken. Great, nice. Very, very cool, very cool. But that's it. That's my talk on difficulty. Happy to have you all. I will end it here unless there's anybody else have any pressing questions. I don't know. Next time we'll talk probably about I don't know. We'll probably talk something about social, about like the social pillar in the game, and we'll talk about social challenges that I want to start implementing, and where I see that going forward in the game. Yeah, we'll talk about social in the next one. Good talk, information. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Trey. That's it, folks. I will see you. Whoa, this is my longest one to date. Yeah, I had a lot to talk about. I have a lot to talk about when it comes to challenge and difficulty, because it does come up. People do worry about it. My biggest advice is don't worry. It's okay if something terribly wrong goes, something terrible happens at your game. It's just a game. Let me go over here. It's just a game. It's not real. Your players will get over it. Just be nice about it, right? It sucks when your character dies, but just be gentle about it. Don't be mean. If you're the DM, it's already mean enough, right? You already have too much power as it is. Yeah, that's my advice. UCR. It will be a fun story later. Yeah, UCR, but don't be married to it. It's not broken. It's just bent. UCR, and consider how many players are playing. Typically, your things need to be harder than you think. So don't worry about killing them. You probably won't even if you try. You probably won't even if you try. I know, because sometimes I try and I'm like, sometimes I do try and I'm like, this ain't working. They're too good. So it's okay. All right, everybody. That's my show today. Join us tomorrow for PvP. We resub days tomorrow. We got the Grand Coliseum PvP at 8 p.m. PT. And join us for the mid-season finale of Planescapers on June 18th at 9 p.m. PT with Kyle White. And then Thursday we got Tomb of Annihilation. Wednesdays I'm doing Quake 2. Peace. Thank you, everybody. Peace out. Have a good one.